So I want everybody to tell me, except Paul, starting with Toye. If you don't know, you just say you don't know. What your understanding is when it comes to a role, in terms of IT, in the sense of IT, a role. It shouldn't be technical. You can tell me there are roles all over the world. A lot of people use these roles. What do you?
I think it's when something is being assigned to someone.
Oh yeah, I think you have been reading this when I assigned the course. You looked at it because today you are on fire. Share your screen, bam bam, shared. Right, you are right. Oh yeah, you assign something to someone. Okay, Chris, you can't say those words anymore. What do you understand by role? Give me some sort of example. Oh yeah, you can stop sharing your screen now. So everybody has that. If you don't have that, please let me know in Google Classroom and I will add you. Chris, I'm waiting.
So you want me to say the definition of a role?
I want you to answer the question I asked. Anthony, you can answer the question because you've been listening to the questions. You can answer it, Anthony.
So, my understanding of a role is a collection of permissions that is assigned to a user. So that tells the user what specific task or what actions the user can perform on the resources.
Yes, but that's a policy. When you say assigned to a user, then that's a policy. We are now talking about a role.
Yeah, so well, it depends on because coming to I'm talking using the other cloud platforms as an example. So permissions, the collection of permissions they are put together as a role.
Exactly.
And you can assign it to maybe you can assign it to a group or a user, and that will tell them what they can do. So it depends on the role that you are assigning to them. It could be that it can be a read only role or is like admin or something. So that would depend on.
Okay, all right, that's cool. Jesse, what do you understand about a role? It can be anything. And if you look at the class coursework, I've got some analogies there. And I've used a hotel, I've used a president, I've used a lot of things to get you to understand what a role is actually. Okay, it shouldn't be in the IT terms. Jesse, can you help us a little bit? Well, Jesse is going to do even better job on that because this is Jesse's field.
Hello, can you all hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right, maybe I'll look at a football field and the people who are playing in the football field. One person can be goalkeeper. He's allowed to catch the ball with his hands within a certain area. He's allowed to kick the ball. He's allowed to. So if he does all those things, that's not a problem because he is goalkeeper.
Yeah.
Another person can be a striker. He's allowed to do many things, but he's not allowed to catch the ball with his hands.
No.
Because he's not a goalkeeper.
Yeah.
Another person could be the referee.
Yeah.
He's not allowed to.
I love this. I love this. Go on.
he's allowed some very special things. He's the only one allowed to use a whistle.
Yeah.
He's the only one that has the cards to say, I'm issuing you yellow card, red card, send you out of the game, stop the game. A player, striker can't do that, goalkeeper can't do that, but referee can do that. So,
and the only one who can cheat for one side.
So, I think if a goalkeeper, if a player at some point decides I want to become a goalkeeper, he is now given the jersey of a goalkeeper. The referee is notified and he goes to the goalpost.
Now
and he can now catch the ball with his hand.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I think that's
so Jesse has put it in the best layman's terms ever.
Yeah, very good analogy.
Exactly. So all these positions are roles. The roles are created and it's there. Everybody knows about it. Role A, goalkeeper. This is what you can and can't do. Role B, a striker. Role E, a linesman. Role this. They all have their permissions, their rights, what they are authorized to do. Yeah, last week we talked about authentication and authorization. So now they are authorized. This role, it doesn't matter who is there, but it's about the role. The role, when someone is in this role, this is what they can and can't do. So each role has its own permission. And this is where Clement, I was getting a bit confused. It's like the permission is given, the role is attached, the policy is attached to the role. That same policy can be attached to even a user. So that in another thing. But this role has this set of permissions and people can take it. So it's like a hat. And the hat has these permissions. Anybody who puts that hat on then becomes authorized to do everything that the hat is authorized to do. And then when they take it off and put it back off, they are no longer authorized to do that. So if the goalkeeper hurts themselves, the goalkeeper will take that goalkeeper hat off and leave it there and leave the field. They will nominate someone who was not a goalkeeper, say, now you can put that hat on. And as soon as they put that hat on, they have now assumed, and the word here,
Today we're going to McDonald's.
they have assumed
in the
that
afternoon.
goalkeeper role.
Okay. McDonald's in the afternoon.
Yeah, Anthony, you can mute. Anthony, when the precious guys come there, you need to mute, else they will take over our course. They are very precious. Okay, so that's what a role is. Okay, Christian, I hope you're listening. I need people to understand that. Okay, so I've put, and I'm going to add Jesse's analogy. I'm going to steal it. Do I have your permission to steal this analogy to also explain roles? Because it's amazing. Okay, in AWS,
go ahead.
In AWS, exactly what we have there. Okay, you can create roles and create as many roles and give those roles specific permissions. They are there. It's just sitting there. And when you want a person, a resource, or something to perform those permissions, instead of just adding the permission to that person and when they finish, you take the permission away, which is going to be tedious. So a user in AWS, let me share my screen and let's go into the AWS world now that you know about roles. Okay, good. This is amazing. Okay, so this is this person here. So what we do is we create the role and then we attach some permissions. This role, what action can this role A perform? Role A can read, move, or delete these resources. resource A, resource B. Yeah. So anybody who takes this hat and put it on, they can read, move, and delete these resources. Okay. The user can also be given this another permission. This is the permission set. This user, we said, can also, if they log in, anytime they log in, they can read and move this resource. They can move it. They can read it. But if we don't want this user to do this move and read, what we have to do is to remove this permission. Okay. And from the user, then they are no longer allowed. So you see, this is the permission block here, authorization. So they have to go through the permission block before, when this is what is going to allow them to do whatever they're going to do. But then this same user who has only read and move, now he wants to delete, and he knows that there's a rule A can allow him to delete this. What we have to also know that the role that is there, you need permission to use it. Okay. So like the football pitch, if someone wants to go into the goalkeeper to become a goalkeeper because the goalkeeper is no longer there, or they need a permission. Not everybody can just go and take the goalkeeper hat and put it on. So we need to set a permission that this role, yes, user A can put this hat on. Not just because the hat is there, everybody can put it on. Yeah. So the coach will decide who can put the goalkeeper hat on. And it's only the coach. And when the coach does, the referee has to also agree and say, okay, I now know that this person is that. So that's we are allowing someone to assume that role. So if Joe Block here is not allowed to put this role on, that permission denied, he will try and put this hat on, it will give him permission denied. So we need to attach a permission, a policy to Joe Block to say Joe Block is also allowed to put this hat on. And whenever he puts the hat on, he's able to now delete this resource and also perform actions on this resource. But his own permission can only allow him to do read and move on this resource. One feature of a role is that it's a temporary credential. The goalkeeper was hurt. The goalkeeper, when they leave, during the football match pitch, the goalkeeper goes out and then a player comes in. The player is, let's say, the number 5 or fullback. That player is only going to be a goalkeeper for that match, that period of time. After that match, that hat is put back. He's no longer a goalkeeper. But remember, in teams, we have a goalkeeper who always starts. So he's the goalkeeper. We bought him as a goalkeeper. Yeah. And that's their role. That's what they do. They are a goalkeeper. Okay. But as soon as, so every time, that goalkeeper will have their permissions. That's like a user. You see? So the goalkeeper, their purpose was to catch and everything. So they already have that permission. Okay. And there's a role, a goalkeeper role also there. Temporarily, we can put that hat on someone to assume that same permission. So we can attach Joe Block's the goalkeeper permission to this role, meaning that whoever also puts this hat on, they can do the same thing. So that's where the permissions and the role confusion comes in. Okay, a permission can be given to a user, can be given to a role. Okay, that's a policy. Okay, I can create a role, and if I don't attach any policy to that role, the role can do nothing. You can put it on and it's still nothing. I can create a user, and if I don't attach any permissions to that user, nothing. I can create a user and the role and assign the same permission to it. One of them is permanent. This guy, he's always got that permission to do the things, but the role, someone has to put it on. Someone who also wants that same permission, but they only use it temporarily. It's temporary, a period of time, and when that session is finished, they're gone. Tomorrow, when they want to do the same thing again, they have to put their hat on again. When they finish, they close the AWS account and go. They come back, they have to put their hat on again. Okay. In AWS, you can assign a role to a user can assume a role. A user can assume a role, and a resource can also assume a role. So this resource here, if this resource, like an EC2 or a machine, is running a script, and the script requires that we delete this resource, okay, that machine running the script also needs permissions to be able to delete this. What we can do is we can give this role to this resource, and then it then gets the permission to delete this. So roles can be assigned to resources and users. Okay. Now, as you can see here, this box here is one AWS account. It's the one AWS account. In that AWS account, we have user, and the name of the user is Joe Block. Okay. What I can do is this. I can select all of this, and I'm going to group them. How do I group them? I'm not very good at this, so leave me alone. Group. Yeah. And now they become one. I can copy and paste. Okay. So now we have two AWS accounts. Oh, what happened there? See my problems? Oh, group. Copy and paste. God damn it, man. I'm very bad at this. Okay, so we have two AWS accounts. Now, in this AWS account, let's say we don't have any of this. Let's delete all of this. Delete all of this. But we have role here, a role here. Yeah, role B. Okay, so let's delete this role. We don't need it here. We got role B, and we got these resources. Let's say we don't even have this user here. We don't have Joe Blocks in this AWS account at all. Well, there's the root user, but we didn't create any user there. And this AWS account can be for Chris or anybody. Okay, so AWS has multiple. You can have multiple AWS account. It can belong to someone. It can belong to anybody. Okay. Now look, this resource here in this AWS account has a role. Okay, this role is here, and this role is able to perform these actions. So it can remove, copy, paste. It can remove this resource. And yeah, okay. So it can do this. This role can do this to this, and it can do that to that. Yeah. Anybody who is allowed to put this role on can do read, move, delete on this. What you can do in AWS in cloud computing is that we can allow your blocks. Yeah. We can allow your blocks to also assume this role. Yeah. Guys, leave me alone. I don't know how to draw for my life. So see, I really can't draw for my life. Okay, let's use a bigger one. Big ones are much better too. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So we can say that Joe Blocks, who is a user in this AWS account, we can give them access and permissions to be able to assume this role in this AWS account so that they can now read, move, or delete these resources. So what they do is they assume the role. They assume it. They have permission to assume this role, then they can assume it. They can put this role on. And that gives them access to this AWS account to perform actions that the role in this AWS account allows. And that's what we call cross-account access. If you didn't do this, what you have to do is you have to create another user for Joe Blocks in this account and give him another username and password. Okay, so Joe Blocks would then authenticate in this AWS account. That would be the one-time authentication. And then when he finishes, he will then use his permission that he has to assume this role. Okay, assume the role. Okay, so if you have any questions, let me know. Else, we're going to go and practice this on AWS. Okay. I would expect that everybody does it. The role that I'll be creating, you follow the steps and you do the same. And then after that, I'll check everybody's. Okay. And then I'll also put some tasks on here later for people to do. Okay. We'll do a document. We'll do a PowerPoint. We'll add a lot of things on here for you for your better understanding. Oh yeah, did that go in?
Yeah.
This is amazing, isn't it? And we are thankful we are thankful that we have Jesse.
And everything.
Yeah, Jesse is amazing when it comes to security. Yeah. And I like his analogy so much. Thank you, Jesse. Right. So we are going to do it. So what I'm going to go to AWS. Okay, everybody log into their AWS. Go into one of your AWS accounts. Well, you probably have only one. Well, anyone. I'm going into one of them. Log in into your AWS account and let's create roles and permissions. Oh, says password. Why am I putting? Please log in. It's important. And I'm in my account. Okay. Okay, so remember, when you log in to AWS at the first time, this is your landing page. The first page that AWS shows you. It's called console home page. This is the home page. Whenever you log in, this is the first page that you will be given. There are widgets on this page that you can add more or remove. Okay, so you can remove this widget. You can remove the cost and usage widget. They've got some default ones here. You can customize your home page. This is the AWS home page. When you want to go to other pages for other services, there's a search bar here. If you know it offhand, by heart, you can just type it like, I want to do IAM. Okay. If you don't know, you click on this grid box here, and it will give you a list of all the other services. You can go to all services, and they have an A to Z type of list. Okay, and each one has its own home. Okay, console page. Okay. So what we're going to do is, I think frequently accessed is there, and I think we've gone to Identity Center. Yeah, we haven't. So I will search for IAM, which is Identity and Access Management. Okay, IAM, Identity and Access Management. So I want to go to that console to go and perform actions there, do things there. I have the authority. My user that I've used to log in has the permissions to do IAM stuff. So this is the IAM dashboard. This is the IAM console. Okay, they call it console. In here, you can do manage users, groups, roles, policies. Can do all sorts. Okay. What we're working on today is our roles. In this account, I don't have any user, so I'm going to create one user. Okay, so first you create a user. I'm going to create a user. You've done this last week, so the user I'll create will be test, training test. No, training test 1. Okay, and I'll say, I'll just call it test 1. Test 1. I'll say this user is allowed to access the console. There are some users who can only be programmatic. Okay, so it can be added to a script, or you can create a user that is just, that user can never come into the management console. Okay, log in with username and password. But this user, we want the user to log in with username and password. And as we did last week, it's best practice that when you're creating a user for someone else, you let the password auto-generated, and then you also make sure that the user changes their password when they first log in. Because what will happen is you will have access to the password. You will know the password because you have to give them the password. They need to change it at the beginning. Or if you don't want, and I'm doing this myself, I can create a custom password, and I will not require that user change the password at the first login. So I'm just going to put a custom password here. Okay. And I'm going to go to next. Okay. For demonstration purposes, I will not attach any permissions. This user cannot do anything. I'm not going to give him any permissions. And this is very important. The user, what permissions can you give to the user when they are authenticated? Okay. I'm not going to do anything. I'll just go straight and don't do anything for the user. Has no permissions, can do nothing. They can log in. That's all. Okay. And I create this user. So this is the information that I need to give to the person who's going to log in. You can download this as CSV, or you can just copy and paste this and give it to the person. Okay, you can also email the instructions to the user. They can go to their email directly. Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to log in into one container. Okay. So I'm going to log in. So the user, 1 minute, let me move this away. In fact, let me put this here. And then put this here. So you see both. So the user will need this. And what they will do is they will just put the URL in there and enter. It will then populate everything. Okay. So as you can see, the AWS account ID has already been populated. Unfortunately, the username didn't come, so they need to put their username test1, and they need to put the password as well. Okay. All right. So that person then now can sign in. You've given them this, you copy this, you send them an email, all the information they need. They need to put the user account ID here, which is there. They need to put the username, and they need to put the password, and then they sign in. Okay, that's it. This user now has been able to come into this AWS account. And as I said earlier on, they are on the home page. Okay, they are on the home page, and lo and behold, they cannot do nothing. They can't see anything. If I go to IAM as that user, they cannot see. It will give them permission denied, permission denied, permission denied. Can't do anything in IAM because they don't have any permissions to do any IAM. We have to give them permission. Okay, they don't have any permission to do anything. Okay, so this user is there. What I'm going to do is now I'm going to create a role and allow this user. So now I'm going to return to list because I've already logged in. Continue. You can only see, these are exam questions. You can only see the password once. If you leave that page that I've just left, that's it. If you didn't send or download the details, that is it. That information is gone. You can't see it anymore. The only other way is to change the password for the person, and then you get that information again with new password. Okay, so this is the user. Now let's create a role. Okay, we're going to create a role, and we're going to call this role, and this is how you create a role. You say, what is this role going to be used for? Okay, allow AWS services like Lambda and others to perform actions in this action. So if a service is going to assume this role, then you choose this. Allow entities in other AWS accounts belonging to you or a third party to do stuff in this AWS account. So in this role, are we going to allow other people to come in? Okay. Or are we going to use federated? Let's say if you log in into your Google, you can use your Google account to come into my AWS. Okay, there's a Samuel. I don't want to go into it. What we're going to do, we're going to do a custom one. 1 minute. Allow entities in other AWS account belongs to you or third party to. No. Or others to perform matches. Oh, what's going on here? See something. Or others. What does that others mean? That's user. The user can also use this, isn't it? Right. Let's just create this role. Allow institutions to call on behalf of this, blah, blah, blah. Let's see. What permissions do we want that role? If that person, whoever puts that hat on, what permissions do we need to give that person? Okay. We can then say they have admin. They can do anything they want. Okay. And then we call the role test1 role. I'll say test1 role. Okay. And then we create the role. Okay. So if you go to roles, you see that now we have test1 role there. Okay. And test1 role, trusted entity is AWS EC2 and so on. 1 minute. Okay, so we have the role. So now what we've done is we created the hat, a hat, but something or someone has to put that hat on. And when that person puts that hat on, look at the permissions they have. They are authorized to do anything administrative access. Okay, this policy here that is attached to this role, when that person then assumes that role, they can do all of that. Okay. Now we need to now give permission, because remember, this user cannot assume this role. Okay. Okay. Let's create another role. I think they have made changes. Let's create another role, because that role, so AWS account. So if you want to create this role, allows for another AWS service to use the role. This role is an AWS account user, either in this account or another account. This is where the cross account comes in. So if I want to create a role for people in this account to use, then I select this account. If I want to create a role for people in another AWS account, then I select this one. So this one, we just want someone in this account to be able to assume it. So what we do is we just select this one, and then we go here, and then we give it permissions again. We're going to give it this, and then we go here. We call it test 2 user role. User in this account role. Okay. I will never forget this, because I've written it literally in English. User in this account role. And I can even add some more and say they have all access. So I can say admin access. So whenever I see this role, I say, oh, this role is for user in this account and they have admin access. Okay. So I create the role, and that role is also there. Okay. Now in this account, people can assume this role. Okay. Now remember, this user here who's in this account currently doesn't have permission to assume this role. Okay. We need to allow this user to be able to assume that role. Okay. So what we do is we add permissions to this user. You can, and we did permissions last week. We can add permissions directly. We can create new permissions and then attach it later, which is normally good. Or we can create a group. Okay. A group, and anybody that we add to this group, then we'll be able to assume. So let's do groups. Okay. So we're going to create a group, and the group we're going to create, we'll call it this name. Okay. So we'll go to groups, and then we'll say group name is this, but then we'll remove role and call it group. Yeah. And we say we want test one user to be part of this group. Okay. Now, what permission are we going to add attached to this group? We will create the permission later. Okay. So we create the group. Okay. So this is the group. Let's go to policies. Now, these are policies and roles. 1 minute. Okay, so we are going to create our own policy. AWS already, and we did this last week, has policies that they have. When you create an account, it's already there. It's easy to use. You can just use those policies, but you can create your own policy. Okay, and this policy, what we are going to do is that we're going to let it assume a role, and I think it's STS. Okay. 1 minute. Let's do a JSON one. And remember, this is where you consult, guys. You're not going to have everything in your head. So now, you know, remember when we started is you need to know what and why. The how, you can find it from you can research. So now we just need to create a policy that can allow someone to create a role. You just do your research, okay? And from my research, I've got a policy here that I just have to create it, and it will allow us to do these things, okay? So there, okay? And as I said, it was STS assume role. So
Ben, can you give us a copy in the chat?
In the chat, yes. So this, I researched, I went to ChatGPT and I said, give me a policy that can allow someone to assume this role. Boom. And there's the copy. So the how to do it, you can learn how to, you can be a master of creating policies, but for now, that's not the purpose here, okay? And this is the policy statement, saying that the statement is effect, allow, which action, STS assume role, on which resource this person can assume this role, whoever has this policy is attached to. And then we go to next. And what we do is we put the name of we create the policy and put it in. Normally what I do is if I create a policy, I name it almost the same. So I'll say I'm going to attach this policy to this group. Yeah. You can put a description, you can tag it. All of this is for your own benefit. You're tagging it, you're giving it the name tag, you are putting descriptions for later, because remember, you are not ChatGPT, you will forget. When you come to your AWS account, you will forget what this role was all about. Why did I create it? And that's why you put more information when you're creating it. So this policy is now created. So, and the difference between policies that are AWS managed or customer managed, you can see that we have one customer managed policy. It means that the customer, the person who the AWS account belongs to, is creating their own policies. And there are ones that AWS have created for you, a lot of them. There are currently 1,336 policies, and I have only created one. AWS helps you a lot because These policies are hard to manage. Anyway, so we created a policy. A policy is the one that is going to give permissions. But the policy is useless if it's not attached or given to someone, okay, or a role. So I can attach this policy to the user directly. I can attach this policy to the group. I can attach this policy to the role. You can attach policy to any entity you want. But for now, we are only attaching this policy to this group. So we go to the group and then we click the group and it says permissions. They don't have any permissions yet. So we attach permissions. So attach policy, and then we look for the one that we created, this one. We select it and we say attach policy. Okay. So now anybody added to this group will be able to use this policy. Currently, we have only one user added to the group. Okay. And what the permission they have is that they can what? They can assume the role. They can put their hat on. That's all the permission they have. When they log in into AWS, they can put the hat on. And when they put the hat on, they are allowed to do everything that hat gives them permission to do. Okay. So what we're going to do is, how do we put the hat on? Is the question. Okay, now we are allowed to put the hat on. How do we put the hat on? We go back to the user that we created, who doesn't have access to do nothing. As you can see, they can't do IAM, they can, but now they have to put the hat on. Okay, the hat on. What we call, you have to assume the role. So you go here and the AWS has switch role there button. Okay, so you go to top right corner where your username at is, select it, and you switch a role. This is how to assume a role from the console part. Yeah, from the console part. You are going to assume a role from the console part. Okay. Now, when you are switching role, you need some information. Which AWS account are you switching the role from? The role name, how you want the role when you are logged in, how do you want it to be displayed? And the AWS also allows you to color code it so that if you assume 3 roles in 3 browsers, you can see, okay, this is this role, that is that role, that is that role. Okay. That information, normally, the person can give you. Okay. So if we go to where we created the role, we can get that information from the role itself. Okay. So this is the role, and this is the link. So instead of putting all that information in, you can give them this link, and all they do is they put that link in their browser and it will auto-populate for them. Okay, so I go here and then I put this in this link. Okay, as soon as I do that, voila, the account ID, the role name, and the rest is whatever I want. By default, AWS will put this as default, and then I can select a color, let's say blue, and then I can switch the role. Okay, so the user, if the user is allowed, when you click this button, it will work. Okay, so now, and I get access to the console backer now, but I have the permissions of the role. Can I do IAM? Let's test it. IAM. Yes, I have permissions to do IAM because the role allows that. Okay, I have assumed that role. And as you can see at the top right here, it's telling me that I am actually test user in this account role access, the role name and everything is there. So I've now assumed that role. If I want to go back, I can switch back to my user. So now I have assumed this role. I can go back to the user that can't do anything. Basically, put the hat back on the floor. Okay. So this is what we've done so far, we have actually assumed a role in this AWS account. Tomorrow, we will go further to another AWS account. It will be quicker, and then we will do some labs and some tests tomorrow, okay? If you have any questions, I'm here. Let me switch back and then prove to you that this user, when he comes back, he then have no access to do anything. As soon as he put the hat down, he doesn't have access. One trick, if you assume a role as a user, AWS then caches the role here. So if you have 10 roles, and as soon as you assume it, they cache it and leave it there for you, so that next time you want to go back to the role, you don't have to actually get the link again. You can just click this one, and it takes you right into that role. You don't have to go through the same process again until the cache is cleared. If it's cleared, then you need that information again. Okay, you need that information. That's why you probably have to keep the link somewhere for your own benefit. And as soon as you switch back, you go back to the user that you already had. Remember, we did Terraform. All this user management that we are doing, creating a role, creating a policy, creating groups, creating all of that, we can Terraform. We can Terraform all of that as well. Remember, we did Terraform, okay? So, any questions? I love it when everything comes to plan, because no questions means that everybody knows everything, and I'm going to ask some questions. So the next 5 minutes, I'll ask some questions. Thank you very much. Let me stop sharing and ask some questions. Chris. Hello, Chris.
Yeah, OP.
Okay. So you ready for your question?
Yeah.
Explain to me what a policy is.
A policy is simply a set of permissions which are attached to a role.
Okay. Yes, I'll give you 70%, because permissions can be used for more than just a role.
Okay. Yeah.
So
And
it's a permission that can, it's not which is, it can be attached to entities like roles, users, and groups. Yeah?
Yeah.
Exactly. That's how you should go about it. Okay, cool. How many policies can you attach to one entity?
I think you can attach as many as you want.
You think, or you know?
I know you can attach as many as you want.
Okay, let's find out. Let's say it can be attached to a role. 10. Guys, ask questions.
Hey.
You're saying, hey. These are simple questions that when you're learning these things should come into your head that, oh, policy, he said just attach the policy. How many can we attach another one? Be curious. When I ask you for a question, these are some of the questions I'm expecting you to be asking me. Okay, the default limit for managed policy that can be attached to an IAM role is 10. There could be that you can attach more to a user, can attach more to group, and so on and so forth. These are the type of questions when we need you to ask. I did not mention it, but you saw that I'm attaching a policy to a role or something. How many can I do? Yeah? Cool. Jesse, yes, I like questions. Go on.
You specified the managed policy.
Exactly my point. Managed policy. So these are customer managed, and we need to look at it. Is it AWS managed policies or customer managed policies? What type of policies? And this is something that we need to go and look at. And that's a very, very good question. This is how you learn. Okay, when you look at these things and you say managed policies, I don't understand what it means by managed policies. What are managed policies? Are there any other policies? Does it mean I can attach those more than those policies? And you go and do your research. Yeah. So that's a task that we'll all have to go and look for tomorrow. Okay. Okay. Oye, can you explain to me what a role is?
A role is when someone can go into the system. When they assign permission that is given to someone to do something on the system, like you said, there's always a hat given to someone before they can do anything on the system, and if they finish, they have to take off the hat for the next person to go on to that.
Yeah. So what you can do is sometimes hard when we've used all these words to explain something, and when someone asks you simple what is a role, and it's like, oh, I need a specific words or something.
Okay.
You are right, but you're using a lot of words. So what I would task you is go on YouTube, watch some of them will confuse you, and come up with your own explanation. If your wife asks you what is a role, you should be able to tell them. If your son, you understand what a role is. We've given you a lot of analogies, but if they ask you what is a role, what are you going to say? Jessica, do you want to give it a go? If your son came to you and said, Daddy, what is a role? What words would you use?
I would say it's a collection of permissions that can be assigned to an entity that determines what it can do or cannot do.
Okay. A role is like a special pass that gives temporary permissions to something. Yeah. A role is like a special pass that gives temporary permissions to something. So it's not something, it is not the permissions itself, but it is the pass. The pass has to have that permission. Okay, so a role is a special pass that gives temporary permissions to something. Okay,
let me have a go at it again. So if you attended a conference, one of these big conferences, and you wanted to use the toilet, they say, oh, sorry, you're not allowed to use the toilet, but take this pass.
Exactly.
So take that pass, access the toilet, come back, drop it, access some other special position, but you must first of all take that particular pass that allows you to access that special area.
So they've given the permission to the pass. The pass is the one that has the permission, and whoever used the pass then can also have that permission, but they can only use it temporarily, because when you finish you have to bring it back. So that's a role. It's a special pass that gives temporary permissions to something. Okay, these were the words you were looking for. Oh yeah.
Okay.
Paul. In fact, let me go back to Chris. It's not fair on Paul. Chris didn't answer the question properly. Chris, what is a user?
I'll say users are entities that are allowed to perform a specific task, or that are given specific permissions to perform a task on AWS.
Okay. Paul, do you want to have a go?
On a user,
Yeah.
I think a user is someone who's created with a username and password and different other requirement that allows that third person to authenticate into a system or something.
You are using the correct words, Paul. The main function of a user is for authentication. Authentication, yeah. Because it needs username and password. Okay. But you can authenticate and not have any permissions. It's like an employee in a company. You are employed. You can be employed, okay, and then you be part of the whole team. But what you can do in the company depends on the permissions they give you. Okay. So the user is the entity that is going to be used to do the authentication for you to actually come in. Okay. So that's different. The role is completely different, because a role, when you have finished authenticating, that's when you can use the role. Okay, so the user is needed. And the user itself can have its own permissions. Okay, but the main primary purpose of a user is authentication. To show that you are who you say you are. Okay. Make sense? Cool. I think that will be it for today. You've done really well. I've enjoyed this. And I've got someone who's going to give me a presentation of this as well, which is cool. We'll brush on it again tomorrow. And I think this has gone in really well. Thank you, Jesse, for your analogies. Amazing. I hope that now you can explain to your son what a role is. It doesn't have to be AWS. It doesn't have to be AWS at all, does it? It's just a role. It can be anything. You can use anything as. But then in AWS terms, the same thing. You create a role and then you go and do this. Okay. So practice, create a role, let the role assume, add permissions, all of those things, and practice. Okay. I will add a lot of content in the classroom for you for your benefit. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Tomorrow we'll practice someone allowing people to come into their own AWS or other people's AWS account, and then we do demos. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Cool. Thank you, Chris. Leave the call.
Okay. Bye.